What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the guild. We are doing some rebasing today. I'm just going to take you along in this process and kind of show you how I'm doing this. There's plenty of people out there, plenty of other ways you could go about doing this. I'm just kind of working with what I have to make this work, and I think it comes out pretty good. So, you can see varying stages of in progress things here, right? This is our unit for this particular video. I've done about, I don't know, 4 or 5 units so far. Here's some bases that are kind of finished, almost. This is kind of what we'll be using, and I'm just going to take you along in the journey. All right, so let's go strip these bases. All right, so we are in the bathroom, and I've got this is my subsonic cleaner that I was using for some other stuff, but we've just got a little Tupperware lid on top of this guy, just something flat, because I don't want to have to repaint these dudes. And this has allowed me to kind of skate by here a little bit. So there's some sort of small container. It doesn't have to be this. And I was doing this with 90%. We're just going to use what I have, which is 70%, and it should probably be fine. And basically, I'm just filling this up to be mostly level with the top of the bases, and then just letting it soak for hours and hours, and then I'll just come back to it like late at night. I don't know about leaving these overnight. I would maybe do that at your own risk. Something that I did try was putting them in the freezer for super glue. And that worked really, really, really well initially, and then proceeded to not work at all for any of the other units that I've tried. So, I don't know, I just bypassed that and went straight to this. We will come back and we will, in some cases, the base material will just peel right up. In some cases, we have to get a little bit more effort, and then we'll work on clipping these dudes off their base, and we'll go from there, all right? Okay, when you start getting into doing this, I would definitely make sure you have on at least a glove, because the black paint that's around the base rim is probably going to get all over your hands, and it's going to be messy, and you just work away at it, depending on how long it's in here. This was done for, probably 4 or 5 hours. They just kind of sat in this alcohol, so you just chip away at it, you can clean them off pretty good. Okay, we've got most of our dudes here mostly cleared off. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. We don't need it to be super perfect. We just kind of needed to get the most of the basic material out of the way so we could get these guys off. The freezer method that I was talking about worked really well for the first batch. They all almost just barely popped off easy. That has not worked for any of the others, so I just bypassed that step and I've just moved to this. Now, depending on the models, like this dude, he's got like a lifted foot. You could kind of just get a knife up under it and snip it off. But I'm kind of working on, I'll kind of press it into the desk. And you kind of want to do it lightly, but some of these guys, they're just going to end up with a little bit of a messed up foot, but some of these you give them just a little bit of pressure and they'll kind of pop off. I've had a couple injuries so far that I've had to, repair, and that's all right. If you're doing this, make sure you're very careful, because these bases will fly all over the place. But we're just trying to get it to something you just kind of have to work at. Like that one just came off. There we go. And he more or less came off pretty normal. I think I've got a little bit of stuff on the bottom there, but that is not too bad. So we are just going to go ahead and do that with all of these guys. And yeah, time lapse. Here we go. All right, now to the part that everybody actually cares about. Basing these suckers. I'm using volcanic earth. Obviously, there's some better stuff that you could use that maybe you don't have to paint. I don't have any of it. I already have this, so we're going to use this. And I'll touch on the rest of that in a little bit. Now, I have like a million of these to do, not just the ones that I just showed you, because I've got another unit that I'm also working on. But I will show you one. We will time lapse the rest of these, and we will move along. So to do this, we've got our, man, this poor brush is probably on its way out. I didn't clean it well enough. It's okay. I don't need a good brush for this. Yeah, we'll use this one. So we've got rocks. These are literally just rocks that I've broken up into smaller pieces, medium pieces. Obviously, I'm not using the bigger ones for like our regular bases. That's probably about as big as it's going to get for these. The bigger rocks we could use for vehicle stuff. I'm also 3D printing some like stalagmite type things that I'm going to use for the vehicle bases. I think that should look pretty good. But this is a real simple process. We are just going to dab this all over. And I'm not really going for anything specific when I'm doing this. It's literally just coverage. Obviously, because I'm putting models on top of this after the fact, I don't want like spiky tall bits, so I will knock those down if I get any. But for the most part, I haven't really had a whole lot of issues. But then we're just gonna decide what rocks we want to stick on here. I'm typically doing like one big one, two little ones, three little ones, something like that. But that is it. That is literally all we're doing. And now it's just time to hit the other like 12 that we have. Here we go. All right, so these have all been primed and base coated black, just a quick spray. I seem to routinely not cover all of the rocks, and that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It'll kind of get covered up once we finish painting them. We're moving to the airbrush. Honestly, you could probably just skip this step if you really wanted, because it doesn't, I don't know if it really makes that big of a difference, but I'm doing it anyways. And this is just a cheap, shitty little red paint. And basically, we're going to put this on kind of heavy, but it's not going to be super like obvious. So I'll show you kind of what we're doing right here and kind of about the consistency that we're going for. It doesn't even need to be super clean. Basically like this, just kind of quick, no fuss coverage of some red. Most of this is going to be undertone, so not that big of a deal. We're just going to cover up all these guys real quick. I do go through this pretty quick because I'm putting it on pretty heavy. Because this isn't a super great paint, it you know, kind of get a bunch on here, and because of that, it ends up a little more like glossy than I would want. That could work to your advantage if you want it to look kind of like wet. I do not. So I hit these with a like a matte clear after I'm done. Again, one thing I'm not super worried about, I just kind of want to give a tint. And that's to hit the sides of the rocks or under the rock edges and stuff like that. Okay, now that these are dry, we've got this is all that we're doing. This is all that's left. We're going to do some red. This is old game color bloody red. Again, it's more of an undertint thing than anything. And then a war paint lava orange. We're going to do some dry brushing. We've got a big fat dry brush. And this always looks a little weird until it dries, I feel like. Like I always feel like I'm overdoing the orange or whatever, but it's part of why I keep some of these here as some frame of reference, but so we're just going to dab on a little bit of this red. And again, this is a little more of a undertone than it is anything to do with the final product specifically, but I'm going to do it anyways, because you can see a color difference between the ones that have it and the ones that don't. So, and if you end up kind of overdoing the red, a little too bright in spots, it's not that big of a deal. We can kind of cover that up with the orange, and it's not too big of a deal. Now, these are all done. We're going to do the same thing again with Lava Orange from War Paints. This is, again, kind of a weird thing because this is clearly a very bright color. You don't want to super overdo it, and it looks kind of weird before it dries. So, kind of just be a little careful. Try not to overdo it, but having some frame of reference helps. And even if you're a little unsure, you'll kind of notice once it starts to dry what it's looking like for you. And if you want it a little more orange, you could just go over it again. It's not a huge deal. So if you're super uncomfortable with it, you know, do it in stages. Not a big deal at all. And just remember, you're to get the sides of the rocks. You know, it's okay if they're a little dark, but you don't want them just to be like black or red or, you know, whatever the last color is that they got. So make sure you're kind of hitting the whole thing. And I will stop talking now and we'll wrap up all of these orange. Okay, and that's it. That is literally the whole process. The only thing left for me to do, because again, these are a little more shiny than I want them, take them all downstairs. I'm going to hit them with a Krylon clear coat because that's the best spray can like matte that I've found. It does the best job of actually matting stuff out. And that's it. So I'm going to paint these up. I'm going to get these guys glued on top of them. Get the base rims painted up black, which I just use this guy right here. Apple barrel black. It's just what I've always had sitting around the house, and it works pretty nice. So we're going to paint these up, and I'll show you what this unit of guys is looking like. All right, now before we can put these guys on their bases, we have to kind of help them blend a little bit. I'm not doing this in any crazy way. I'm sure there's a better way to go about doing it, but just to give them a little bit of sandiness on their legs and stuff, if you will, we're gonna use hardened earth through the airbrush, just a little bit of it. And then for darker colors, like hardened earth over the white, this will be fine. But if I was doing it on something darker, I'd use a burnt sienna, something a little more potent. Since this is transparent, this doesn't work super well. So we're just gonna go ahead and drop a little in here. And just gonna kind of lightly hit the kind of the bottom halves of their legs, or their like shins. And then I'm gonna go back a little heavier on the feet because the paint job we're doing is rather dark, and that's basically it. So we'll take something like this guy. Since he's kneeling, he's going to get a little bit of extra love around the bottom, but we're still going to make sure we hit the bottoms of his feet and stuff because that's where he's been walking, you know. So, nothing too crazy. You could theoretically skip this step if you really wanted, and it would still be fine. I just personally like the kind of dirty, grungy nature of it. So we're just gonna truck away at this for a second. Okay, that is it for these little clones here. Hopefully that helped at all. Obviously, there's better ways you can go about doing this. I kind of want to do some tufts, but I don't really have any that work in that color, so something to keep an eye out on. But we are trucking right along in this rebasing project, and you can see these little fellas that may be going on some of the bigger vehicle bases, but for the most part, that's it. Real simple and easy. Hopefully that helped you guys. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, leave a sub. If you have any other thoughts or ideas, let me know. Other than that, I appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.